were always asking about relativity. You had like
No, I saw the
pretty
video today.
okay.
You can continue from.
Okay, good. Okay, then it is good. Okay, so like you are very interested, and also you have quite good idea about that. So like we talked about actually special relativity in the last class. Okay, so you have to understand that we talked about now two kinds of relativity. One is the original Galileo relativity, which we told like if you are somebody is going in a train, for a person sitting in train, the other person is sitting idle. If you're standing from outside, it is a separate speed. So depending on which frame you are, the speed could change. So that was the simple Galilean relativity. And then this came. So this is what we call as special relativity, because it is a special phenomenon applied to the regular relativity theory. And then we also like it laid down some kind of sanctity to the whole science which had at that time, which also means that it deconstructed lot of definitions of science. So it deconstructed the concept of time, or what we call as absolute time. So it told us there is nothing called absolute time, and for that matter, there is nothing called absolute mass, and there is nothing called absolute distance. Okay, only one thing which is absolute is speed of light. So that is the only thing which we can be sure about. And then actually from that time onwards, people started changing the definition of other things based on speed of light. For example, like we before used to have measurement of distance. Like for all measurement units, whatever we have, there are laboratories which keep the primary measurement. For example, if we tell 1 liter, there will be a primary measurement of 1 liter in a central laboratory. And then from there will be similar things produced, which will get calibrated at constant period of time, because depending on the expansion and contraction of the metal in which it is made, the 1 liter can slightly increase or decrease. And then people use that measurement for all around the world for the measurement of volume. But then always there would be a standard measurement. So similarly for length, people use some specific kind of material, and which will not corrode or erode much. Using that, it is marked like this is 1 meter, or this is 2 meter, this is 1 centimeter. And then the calibration happens with that secondary instrument, and calibration happens with that. But now we tell 1 meter in terms of the time light takes to travel that, not with respect to physical things. So we tell this the distance light travels in so much time is what is called 1 meter. So the definition itself is changed. All has been pegged to light now, speed of light. You get that, right? So that is we can tell Einstein brought light to the science in a different meaning. Okay. Hi Omkar. Hi. Okay. Right. Yeah. Hi. So now, but this also created another problem, which initially many people did not recognize. So the problem was that, see, when Isaac Newton defined the equations of gravity, the gravity was defined even much before Newton. Even Galileo had understanding of gravity, and people in the past also had understanding of gravity. But how to calculate the exact gravity was Newton's contribution. But then the thing is, like if you take two objects, like maybe Earth and Moon, or Earth and Sun, or one galaxy and another galaxy, so Newton gives a very good equation to calculate what is the gravitational attraction between these two, which is fairly accurate. Actually, using that only, we calculate the distance to other planets, and we calculate the orbital path of the satellites which we launch, all using that. Okay, it works fairly well. But then it also tells that gravitational force is depending on two parameters. One is the mass of these two objects. So more the mass, more is the gravitational attraction. So Earth will attract things, but Sun will attract more than Earth. And another galaxy will attract more than Sun because it has more mass. So the concept of gravity was that if you have more mass, you will attract more. Okay, so that was the concept. And then if the distance is less, just like magnets, if you are closer to each other, then the gravity is more. So if you are farther, gravity is less. Just like how magnets work, very similar to. If magnet is powerful and big, it will attract more. And if you keep two magnets close by, it will attract more. The distance is more, means you have lesser gravity. So what does that mean? That means we tell that the current solar system is working based because of gravity. That Earth is rotating around Sun in that orbital path, and Saturn is rotating in that path, and Moon is rotating Earth, all because of forces of gravity. The balance between the force of gravity and the what we call as inertia. So now what will happen? Let us assume if Moon, another planet or another meteor or something comes and hits Moon, and if Moon becomes heavier than what it is having now, so what will happen? The gravity between Moon and Earth will change. It will increase. So this balance will change, and slowly Moon will come and collide with Earth. Or in other ways, let us assume if Sun is shedding some of its weight, then the gravity between Sun and Earth will reduce, and Earth will fly away from its current position. So it's the gravitational force which is maintaining that balance. Okay, so that is something which is sort of like agreed and concluded. But then the issue happened because of the theory of special relativity is that, let us assume Sun is shedding some of its weight. Then that means at that moment, Earth has to fly away. But how Earth gets that signal? How Earth knows that something has happened like this in Sun? What is it, that signal which gets transacted so that this phenomenon happens instantaneously? You understand the point? So theory, it is good, it's working, it is fine. But then if a disruption happens, if a change happens in mass, or if change happens in distance, suddenly the force of gravity changes and the impact will be seen in that other object. So how is that other object knowing this? How that signal reaches there? Instantaneously. Because as per the special relativity, nothing can travel faster than light. So light takes some time to reach there. For example, from Sun, it takes 8 minutes to reach Earth. So whatever is happening in Sun, we will know only after 8 minutes. But how can then gravitational force gets impacted instantaneously? So that was a profound problem, which like very difficult to answer. It's an impact of special relativity. So how do we explain that? Actually, Einstein's and many others spent considerable time in this. It said that Einstein spent 10 years. He came up with many explanations, nothing worked. How does this work? And then that is when he came up with his next theory, which actually probably we can tell catapulted the way in which we understood universe. So that is what we call as general relativity. So Einstein's proposition was that gravity is not caused by a force. There is no force which is working between these two. The word gravitational force itself is not right. There is no force. It's a bit tough to understand. So you remember this space-time we are talking about. So we have been telling in the last class that there are 3 dimensions in space, because space is 3D. What we call as height, maybe length and breadth, or whichever way you tell, is 3-dimensional. And then there is time. And then we are telling these two are having a symbiotical relationship. You can't separate one from another. time has a meaning only when it is with space. Like we told last time, we took that example of you are traveling in a spaceship. Depending on which spaceship you are, is what your time is depending upon. So the space determines the time. So without space, time does not have a meaning. And also the motion also determines. So the space and time together is whatever we call it as space time. It is very difficult for us to visualize how it is, but the theory, whatever is put forward by Einstein further, is all with respect to space time. So Einstein was telling that the space time, whatever is happening, but when you see it in your naked eyes, how you see, you are seeing in 3 dimensions. But in space time, there is 4 dimensions. So one explanation given was that, let us assume a flight is going through sky. Okay, it is going through a straight line. But if you are standing in a hilly terrain or a mountainous terrain, you will, if you see the shadow of that flight, you will see it's curved, because you are in a 2-dimensional place, but the flight is going in a 3-dimensional space. 1 dimension is reduced here, so a straight line is appearing to you as a curved line. So his explanation was that if you extrapolate this problem, we see things in 3 dimensions, but the actual game is happening in 4 dimensions, 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. So his point was that when you put a stone on the surface of above Earth, it is falling to Earth not because a force is acting on it, but because it is the straight and easy path for that stone to follow. So when you look at it, you feel it is curved, but in space-time, it is not curved. Or Earth is rotating around Sun, or Moon is rotating around Earth. In your vision, you feel it is in circular path or elliptical path, but in space-time, it is not. It is a straight line. So his point was the space-time is, they call it as a fabric. Space-time is a fabric, and whenever there are massive objects, very massive objects like Earth and Sun and all those things, the space-time fabric gets curved or warped like this. It's a very pictorial representation. If you assume this is a very heavy object like Earth or Sun or something, space-time is normally flat, but when there is a very heavy object, there is a curvature, there is a warp to the space-time. So if you have a stone or some object which is here, for it the natural path is to slide like this, to come like this, because of this curvature. But for you will feel it is coming in a bent position, but for it is a straight position. Or if assume it is Sun and if Earth is here, it actually, for Earth to move from one point to another point in this fabric called space-time, the straight line path is like this. When you see, you feel it is elliptical, but for them it is a straight line in space-time. It's very difficult to imagine, very difficult to like visualize, because 3 dimension itself हवा जाते हैं, so 4 dimension आ गया तो watt लग जाते हैं, so it's a bit of a tough thing. Okay, but that is the explanation, which means the gravity is not a force, it is an effect of this structure of space-time, which is caused due to massive objects. So when there is a heavy massive object, the space-time, whatever we call that fabric, it gets warped depending on the mass which is available in universe. So whole universe is space-time, you have a frame, and depending on where there is heavy mass, it will be warped, which is actually another way of telling the more mass objects will have more gravity, which is fine. But he was trying to avoid the need for a signal to travel and build a theory which will last. Okay, so it's bit daisy. It's bit visualizing is bit tough. Okay, but then what happens? So Einstein's prediction was, this is a theory, it's a postulate. So his prediction was that whenever there is this, let us assume this massive object is rolling. This massive object is rolling means it is like you have a net. In that net, if you put a ball and the ball rolls, means like this curve or this warp will travel along with the ball, right? Or if you put a ball in a net like this, that fabric, there will be repercussions. Okay, so he called it as gravitational waves. So he told that whenever there is an event happening in universe which affects with heavy massive object like black hole, or maybe a star's explosion, things like that, it will have ramifications in the space-time and we can detect it. And that is what he called as gravitational wave. And in 2015, we detected the first gravitational wave in LIGO laboratory. So which is almost 100 years after Einstein. Okay, there are other evidences which had come for general relativity, but this was like gravitational waves. After that, we detected multiple times. Even I think few months back, an Indian team who are doing experiments, they also did detect gravitational waves in their observatory. And they once you have detect gravitational wave, then you can trace it back to the origin of it and from which place it has come. So we had people were observing a black hole, two black holes rotating each other for quite few years, and those two black holes merged, and that was supposed to be the ripples caused from that. So that was traced pretty well back into that. So that, and there are few other evidences of which has emerged, which we don't know later whether this will turn out to be not an evidence, but currently this is the accepted theory for depicting universe structure.
I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a logically thinking and using common sense. If gravity is, you know, something that follows this curvature in space-time, so why should it follow and go to the lowest, wherever the greatest curve is? Why should it go and settle there? I mean, when we think using common logic, it should go down because of gravity.
Which
If you
go
have
down? Which goes down?
matter, it
Hmm.
falls down or it goes down because of gravity. That's what a common belief is. When
Hmm.
it is happening out of curvature in space-time, then
Hmm.
why should it go down? Why should it follow the curvature of space-time, space-time, and settle down at the lowest place or wherever there is a greater curve is?
Yeah,
Why
so
should
as per relativity, it is not going to the lowest space. It is following something called a straight line, which is to see any object. The fundamental theory of physics is that when it moves from point A to point B, it will follow the easiest path, the path with offers least resistance. So, for example, if you put a drop of water at one plane, so that drop of water will follow the path of least resistance. So and which is normally a straight line or the easiest point, or unless you have some blockages. That is a rule of physics. So now here, as per the relativity, you are not going to a place where there is maximum depth. So depth, it is coming basically because of this diagram. So don't take this diagram too much into heart. So it is for it to have depth of, you have to have a fixed place. There is nothing called fixed here, but the the path is the straight line path, which is called a geodesic. So that is from point A to point B is not based on depth, it is based on the straight line.
no,
So that, yeah.
even if it follows, it will settle down right somewhere. It like
Yeah,
moon is
yeah.
moon tends to come towards the center of the earth, right? Moon is attracted to
Ah,
the
yeah,
earth.
yeah. So that is, yeah. So that is yeah, that you can easily explain. One second. See what happens if you take it like, see, the explanation is very similar to how you explain with gravity. Let us assume this is there here. Okay, so now what happens if this is moon and if this is earth? What we have to understand is moon is having an original motion. This moon is having an original motion. which had which traces back to its origin sometimes, or maybe some event happened in between. So this moon was going like this. Moon is going like this. So that is where its inertia is. So it has the tendency to go like this all the time. It has an original motion. Now, because of this curvature gives you an effect to slide down. Now, if this moon did not have the original motion, it would have slid down. Now, moon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It will come down where there is maximum gravity. So there is a greater curvature in space-time, right? It will settle down. It will not move upward again. Like
No, it is what happens is you have to understand there are two things under play here. When you take about things like moon, there are two things under play here. One is the original motion of this moon.
Yeah, that is going around the Earth.
Not going around the Earth,
going
away from the Earth, which is what you call as centrifugal. So it is to go away. Just to go away.
That I understood that it balances and it remains in the orbit.
Yeah. So now this curvature, what is caused by this curvature is normally this moon will go like this. This moon actually will go like this and escape. Like when you have a sling and if you leave your hand, it will go straight line, right? Like a hammer. It will go like this. But then this curvature is causing it to slip down. So what happens is there are two things under play here. So one is you have this curvature which is trying to act here. So the resultant of this is what is going like this. And at this point again, the inertia is there. At every point, moon is having inertia. So it always wants to move in its original direction. So that is the first law of Newton. Whatever you tell, any object will want to continue to be in its motion unless some other force comes and acts on you. So it is having its original inertia. That is very similar to how we had the explanation with gravity. To be frank, the concept of gravity does not change. What is getting changed is how it is getting caused. What is the reason for gravity? So Newton also explained what is the impact of gravity, but what is reason for gravity couldn't explain. So this is actually not an explanation of what is gravity. It is an explanation of how gravity is coming, why gravity is coming, what is the reason.
No, my question was more suppose a satellite falls down to Earth.
Yeah.
So it is aiming towards the center of the Earth. Forget about the centripetal force and everything. Yes, it is aiming towards the center of the Earth. It is falling down. So why it should aim to the center of the Earth? It is aiming at the place where there is more curvature, or why it should go down, or why it should follow a place where there is more curvature in space-time. Or
yeah, that is because let us assume if near Earth, if there is, let us assume there is another very big galaxy or something bigger stuff comes here, then this curvature will change and this will not fall here, it will fall here.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying, trying to ask, like why it should follow it is still aiming at a point, let's say at the center of where there is a more curvature or there is more time. Or
no, it is not aiming is the point. The point is the matter doesn't have intelligence, right? So it doesn't aim anywhere. There is no aim. It is not aiming anywhere. So in the space-time in the space-time regime, that is its path of a straight line. For example, if it is having a motion, now we are telling this is a straight line. It is going like this, right? Which we are able to understand because moon is having a straight line motion. Like that, for that stone or something, that is its straight line motion. That is the place where it is going. That is its natural motion, whatever we call it as natural motion. So, but when you go in a natural motion, what will happen is, for example, like even light ray, if you take it like that, so that is another prediction of relativity. See, for example, if a light ray or something is going like this because of this curvature, see, but we have to understand one thing: the more easier you try to explain science, the more you will be farther from the truth. So it won't be exactly like this, but this is an easy way to explain. But what will happen is, if the light ray is going, actually it will slip here.
Yeah.
It will slip here. It will slip here. It will slip and go like this. So then that is proven. That we have solid proof. That was, in fact, to be frank, the first proof of relativity, that when there was an eclipse, when you could manage to see for a star next to here about sun, it was the light was bending. The light, yeah, the light should have gone straight like this, but it started bending and coming. So we had originally marked the star location. So that was actually the first proof of
Eddington.
yeah, Eddington theory, which actually happened pretty closer, I think, after the World War. I think it happened at that time. Yeah.
If Earth is having more gravity, then whatever that is following the curvature, it's not continuing the motion further up, right? It will settle down somewhere. Like Earth, in this picture, you are showing that Earth is.
You are asking why it is coming here and stopping. Yeah. So because from here, like if we really look at it, if something is falling on Earth, actually what happens is that is basically purely strength of material. So if I keep this mobile on my table, it doesn't mean that there is no gravity on this mobile. There is gravity on this mobile. So it wants to go to Earth, but the stable material is having a strength which is enough to hold this force. Now, instead of the stable, if it was a very flimsy material, then this mobile and table will collapse. Is it not? So that is purely strength of material. So Earth has more strength of material. So, but then, if there's a big meteor falling on Earth, continents shift. So that can go, it doesn't stop here. If a big meteor falls, then it can go from here. It hits here and goes. It doesn't stop here. It follows its natural movement. So something is stopping here because it is the strength of Earth. If it is much heavier to hold that, then only it will stop. Another big stuff hits Earth and goes. It has happened so many times. It doesn't stop. Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's not that clear, but continue with that. I will.
Yeah, I will also search for some more better videos or something which can explain that, and then try to put that. Okay. Okay. So now the impact of this, actually, the impact of general relativity and also the impact of gravity is actually that, see, if gravity for all our practical purposes, we consider gravity as a force so that it is easy for us to depict. So if gravity is something which is attracting all the matter to the mass, which means in the universe, wherever you have heavy galaxies and all, will have more gravitational attraction. And that means the whole universe should have shrunk into one piece, actually speaking, because you have this gravitational attraction. Okay, so even during Newton's times, actually, many people had asked this. It should have come. But Newton was a very pious person. Actually, in the later parts of his life, he had spent more time in writing faith-based books. Actually, so he himself, it seems, should have known that the gravity attracts wherever that time they were not knowing other galaxies, but wherever there is heavy mass like Earth, Sun, solar system, everything should have attracted towards it, and it should have become like a big ball should have come. Okay, so then surprisingly, what happened? Einstein also, when he put this one, like if it is a space-time fabric curvature, wherever there is a mass, it should actually sink it down. Everything should come together. But then Einstein also refused to believe that his own theory, his own implications of his own theory. So he actually suggested that whenever he came up with the equations of this relativity, you have to understand these, both special and general relativity are backed by very sound and very robust mathematical equations. Very sound, very robust mathematical equations. Okay, so which actually calculates the orbital shifts of many orbits. Many of the planets in solar system itself have actually some peculiar kind of orbital structure which are not fully explained, which were not fully explained by Newton's gravitational equation. So the relativity equation explains those things to very precise, including the GPS what we follow as on today, the global positioning system kind of stuff. Okay, so it is not just philosophical, it is all backed by robust mathematics. So now Einstein at that time, he proposed that in his theory itself, in his model itself, he proposed something called anti-gravity. He told there is a force called anti-gravity, which is equal to the amount of gravity of universe. That is why there is a balance. That is why universe is just like this. So they all had some impact of faith in them. So they want to ensure that the universe is very static. Whatever we see, it is very static kind of stuff. So this he called it as cosmological constant. This anti-gravity force, he called it as cosmological constant. And later Einstein himself told that was the biggest blunder of his life. That he didn't believe his own theory, and he tried to make some patchwork, some jugaad to adjust to see to it that universe is intact, it is static. But then other people had more belief in Einstein's theory than what he had. So there was this gentleman called Friedman, Russian. So he actually came up based on general relativity theory. He came up with a concept that if general relativity is true, that means the whole matter of the universe should get attracted to the areas where there is heavy mass. Wherever mass is more, it should get attracted. But it is not happening so. So he predicted, it is purely a postulate, purely a hypothesis. So he came up with a theory which is called Friedman theory. Very interesting, very philosophical. He put together two postulates. Postulate one, he told, when we look from Earth, whichever direction we look at, universe is almost the same, almost, not like exactly. When I look here, I see overbridge, and when I look here, I see building. Not in that way. Okay, this is in macro, in macro, in a bigger sense, like stars, galaxies, and all those things. When you look around, the number of stars and things which you see all around is almost uniform, which means you are sitting in the center of the earth, and wherever you look, it all remains same. Then his next theory takes away this pride of we are the center of the earth. He tells this is true wherever you go in universe, which means in universe you travel wherever you are, from any point. When you look around, it will all look very similar. Taj Mahal ka jaisa hai, whichever point you very symmetrical. Okay, in a larger schema, in a macro schema. So this is actually, he came up with this based on theory of relativity only. He told if theory of relativity is true, means universe has to expand. If universe, there is some force with which universe is expanding, otherwise it should contract because of gravity. There is no other force. If gravity is something which is attracting, it should contract. If it is not contracting, that means universe should expand. When universe is expanding in all direction, means whichever place you sit and see, everywhere else it will look alike. It will look similar. This doesn't have any scientific backing. It was his proposition. It was purely his proposition. Okay. So then the next thing was that there is something which is forcing you to expand, but then this gravity is trying to pull you down. So it is like when you are expanding, but gravity is trying to pull you down. Okay, when you expand, your mass is increasing, your volume is increasing. So that force of expansion will reduce over a period. It will reduce. You're fighting against gravity. So at one point, it should balance. The force of gravity, which is pulling you down, and the force of expansion should balance. and you should have what we call as a crunch. Should come back, follow a similar path like this, and come back to zero size. So this was Friedman's model. Okay, so that is where that means they told, okay, that's where the concept of Big Bang theory and all coming. But like you started, if you are expanding means at one time you should have been a single point. Okay, so this was Friedman's theory. But then, interestingly, few years after Friedman, there was a gentleman called Hubble, who's the first person who actually came up with the observation that there are more galaxies than ours. So till that time, we had realized that we are in a galaxy called whatever we call as Milky Way or whatever it is, and there are much more stars and there are more solar systems. But then Hubble is the person who observed that there are more galaxies. There are much more galaxies. Okay, so he did using very advanced telescopes. Hubble started observing the galaxies, and he started pegging the distance of those galaxies from us. And you don't have any method to do that. You can't measure the distance to galaxies. For that matter, you don't have any method to measure the distance to stars. We measure the distance to the planets based on actually the Kepler's law, which we told first. So those are things which are orbiting sun. But otherwise, you have only one thing to analyze. That is the light coming from those stars. In fact, all our information, whatever we learn today, is based on the nature of the light which comes from these stars. Okay, so the light, when it comes to you, of course, when it comes to you, its brightness reduces, but you can measure what is the brightness when it reaches you. Okay, and based on that, for the nearby stars, actually through many methods which are based on physical measurements and all, we have calculated what is the distance to some very nearby stars, and then in those stars, actually what is the brightness in those stars, what is the light's brightness in those stars are actually measured. So which means you have three information now. What is the original brightness of a star? What is the distance of that star with respect to Earth? And what is the brightness we feel when we look from here? Of course, it is reduced. So these three are related. The more the distance means the brightness will reduce when you look at it. So which means if you get two of this data, you can find the third one. So you always know what is the brightness you are measuring. For any further star, what is the brightness you are measuring, you always have. But you don't know what is the distance to that star. You don't know what is its original brightness. Okay. So, but you know that if few stars, you are having similar brightness whenever you look at it, chances are that they all are in same places, very close to each other, or they are in one galaxy. Okay, so that was the observation experiment Hubble was undertaking. Okay, so he started taking one by one specific stars, some specific galaxies. With that, he tried to measure their original brightness. What is the brightness of the light of those stars, and what is the brightness we are measuring, and started calculating the distance to those stars. So with that, actually, he identified and marked many galaxies. And he was seeing the pattern of the lights there. Actually, there is one more reason why we look at the pattern. If you look at the light which is reflected from Mars, if you study that, you will observe that some things are missing in that light. Some colors and some frequencies and some stuffs are missing. So that is actually an evidence of the atmospheric structure or the material structure of those planets, because certain things will attract certain type of light. Certain materials like will attract certain gases will attract certain type of light. So by analyzing the light which we see of different planets and stars is how we analyze what could be there in those planets and stars. Okay, so this gentleman Hubble, he observed these things, and he marked few of these galaxies, and to his interest, he noticed that from the light which is coming from all the galaxies, whenever he measures, each time they are becoming more and more reddish. Reddish. You know, the light, whatever we see the light in various hues. If you look at sky, you look at the blue light, you will feel light is blue. When you look at the horizon, you will feel light is orangish or reddish. It is the same light. So it is only reason is that if you see it orangish, the more of the orange wave is or red wave is coming to you. If you, when you look at sky, if you feel it is bluish, more of the blue wave is reaching your eye. That is what it means. It is the same light. Okay. So he started observing the light is becoming more reddish in those galaxies. Okay. So then we have to understand when light will become reddish. We have to understand the science behind when will light become reddish or bluish. Okay. So we will come to that. So before that, so if you tell about that Friedman's theory, whatever we told, this expansion like this, so the justification what Friedman gave was that the common example, just take it purely as an example, don't go too much into that, is that of a balloon or something which expands. So when it expands, what will happen is the distance between 2 points will increase. Distance between 2 points will increase. Okay, and the farther you are from one point, so for you, if you are here, if this is farther from you, the distance between you and this one will further increase. The farther you are, the distance between you will further increase when balloon blows up. And you can never tell there is one point which is center of this. Nothing is center. Okay, this is slightly distorting example, but then there are limitations on how people can give examples like this. So this is what Friedman's theory was telling, like wherever you see, everywhere else will look similar because it is expanding. Okay, but then he also implied if it is expanding, the distance between you and the next galaxy will increase, and the farther you are, it will increase further more, purely if you conceive it this way. And if you look at it from that diagram of cone, time cone, like we discussed in the last class, it will look something like this. Okay, purely the feel of it, but again the distance is increasing when this becomes bigger. Okay, now if you were to understand why this red color shift was happening, so there is some science to it. So for example, if you have an ambulance, and if this gentleman, the other gentleman are at equal distance from the ambulance, so but the guy in the front will hear louder noise. So he will hear a louder noise because of a phenomenon what we call in science as Doppler effect. Okay, so what it is you can see the number of signals, the number of waves. The sound also goes like wave. So what happens is when this ambulance is producing sound, it is creating waves. But what will happen? The wave which it produces, when it moves, for this person, the wave gets stretched a bit. The ambulance is pulling that wave along with that, right? Because the sound is coming from the ambulance horn. So when it moves away, it will slightly stretch that wave. So if you have a wave like this, if you have a wave like this, let us assume when the ambulance is moving, what will happen is when the ambulance was at this point and the person was standing actually here, but by the time this wave reaches this guy, this ambulance has moved here. So this tip actually slightly moved. So this will actually slightly stretch. So he will get less number of waves. And the opposite effect will happen to the person who is in front. For him, the last wave is coming closer to him. So he will receive more number of waves. The person who is in front, despite the distance being same. Understand? So this is actually the principle which is used. You would have seen police using interceptors. I don't know whether in Mumbai they use it, in Delhi and Mumbai. If you have a long stretch of road which is straight, so when you go, you will go like 100, 120, 130 kilometer. And when you reach after some point, you will see the police guy standing there. You won't see it from distance because you have, for example, 5 kilometer or 10 kilometer further distance. I don't know whether you have seen that. Yeah, so that is called interceptor. So वो police ना वो उसका गाड़ी में जीप को ऊपर वो interceptor रखे खड़ा रहेगा. So I was also thinking in different how he also, if I can't see him, how can he see you? He can't see. He is sending a audio a wave. He's sending a noise wave. The noise wave comes and hits you and comes back. And because of this Doppler effect, depending on your speed, how much wave he will collect back. From that, he can calculate what is your speed. You understand? You see, right? So these are the repercussions of sound traveling faster than your car. You have to pay a fine. Okay, fortunately or unfortunately. So this is that effect. Okay, then you know, the same effect happens in the case of light also. Okay, so if you assume this is a galaxy, and you are seeing from here and you are seeing from here also. So if you're seeing from both sides, what will happen is, for this person, the wave will be a bit stretched because this guy is constantly moving. So this wave is getting stretched. So each time he will get less number of waves compared to this guy. This guy will get more number of waves because that last wave will reach him faster because this is moving. You understand? Similar like here. So this wave, when this guy emitted this wave, he was here. When he is moving, so the tip will stretch, and each wave when it comes, he will get it bit delayed, or in other words, he will get less number of waves than he got in the past moment, because this is traveling and emitting waves. But this guy will get more number of waves because it is getting bit compressed. So he will get more number of waves, and this guy will see less number of waves. Okay. So now you have to understand one thing. What you call as color, is how many number of waves you are seeing. How many number of light waves you are seeing in 1 second is what you call as color. Okay. So in the light spectrum, what we call as light. So how many number of waves you see in 1 second, we call it with the name as frequency. Frequency means how many waves you will see in 1 second. And that is directly proportional to your length of the wave. It is like, let us assume you are in a toll booth. Okay. So in front of you, if you all are trucks, you assume the next toll line, all are cars. The next line, all are scooters. Okay. So you may go and stand behind the scooter by thinking that truck is bigger, longer, scooter is shorter. But what you will not realize is that truck का line में 10 truck है तो car का line में 20 car रहेगा and scooter का line में शायद 30 scooter रहेगा, because the length of the truck is more. So actually the truck line will move faster because only less number of vehicles have to go, right? So if you look in the same way, if your length is more, you will have only less number of waves in the same space. If you assume this is a truck, in the same space, if it was this wave, you would have had more number of waves. If your length of this wave is more, means in the same space, you will have only less number of waves. You understand? Do you get that? This is purely like, you see, if it in the truck line, you will have less number of trucks. Because truck ka length zyada hai. If it was cycle or scooter, you will have more number. Because in the same distance, if your length is less, it's a commonsensical that you will have more number of vehicles. So in the similar way, in our light spectrum, this red means you have more length for your wave. Okay, and the bluish or this other side of the spectrum, violet side, you have less length of the wave. Not this much difference. Don't go by this diagram. Not this much difference. This is to show this, but the difference between a red light and a blue light is that red light's length is more, which means you will see only less number of waves in 1 second. And in the case of blue light, you will see more number of waves in 1 second because its length is less. So which is what we call as frequency.
But this waves depends on what? These waves, those waves depends on what? It depends on what? Like how you get less.
It is standard. The structure of light is standard. What is the length of the wave is standard. That is why red color is standard. It doesn't get changed. It doesn't get changed. But what color you see is depending on this, which gets reflected. That is depending on the nature of the material. So if you see something as red, that means the whole light all colors are there, all wavelengths are there. But this material is having a speciality that only it will reflect red, so that you see only red. So if you're wearing a blue shirt, that means you have a specific kind of pigment which you use. It will absorb all other wavelengths, all other colors of that light. Only blue gets emitted, so you feel that is blue. So your sense of color is actually how many colors gets reflected from here, or which wavelength will get reflected from here. You understand? So light you can consider as a pack of many different kind of waves. You can consider it as a pack of different kind of waves, all traveling at the same speed. So the entire light, red also travels at same speed, blue also travels at same speed. But red wave, less number of waves will hit your eye in 1 second because its length is more. Think about truck. Not that much difference. Okay. And blue means more number of waves will reach your eye. You understand? That is the difference. So that is it. So when you absorb everything, then that is what we call as black body, black surface. You can't see anything. Or when you reflect everything, as has been shown by the prism experiment which kids do in school. If you put everything through a prism, it will become white. So when all the components comes, you will see it as white. Yeah. Okay. So I hope this color funda is very important for you. I hope. Okay. Right. Okay. So going back, when you get more waves, you will feel it is bluish. When you get less waves, it will become reddish. Okay. So which means if a galaxy is going away from you, you get less number of waves because it gets stretched. Okay. So when galaxy comes closer to you, you will see it as the light is bluish. So if you are seeing red light, when you look at a galaxy, constantly it is going to red side. That means that galaxy is going away from you. Something is going away from you. Okay, so that actually is the result of this experiment which this guy called Hubble conducted. Okay, so he not only conducted this experiment and realized that the galaxies are going away from us, he further studied, analyzed that, and realized that the farther a galaxy is from you, it is actually becoming reddish faster, which means it is going away from you faster. The more away a galaxy is from you, it's going away from you faster, which actually exactly agrees to Friedman's theory. Friedman's was a hypothesis. Friedman's was a hypothesis that based on general relativity, I am putting a hypothesis. Whenever you look anywhere in the universe, all should look similar. And that is possible because world is expanding, universe could be expanding. And when if universe is expanding, that means the farther part will be expanding faster. But exactly that thing was experimentally proved by Hubble, okay, with his results. You understand? So that is the theory which you have, which we have as of now for this universe. There are other variations for this curve. Okay, we don't know with the current level of expansion, we don't see any chance for a contraction. So in the current level of expansion, whatever it is happening, well, the gravitational force is pulling it down. So there are exact calculations for what is the speed at which universe is expanding, and what is the could be the approximate force with which the gravity of the whole universe is pulling it down. What could be the mass of the whole universe? There are approximate calculations. Okay, but then when we add up the mass of all whatever we could think of in the universe, all galaxies, all stars, approximated everything, whatever we get in actual, in reality, is only less than 5% of calculated value, which means 95-96% of the matter of universe we don't know. Where is it? So that is what we call as dark matter, dark energy, and all. We don't know, still searching. That's why all these experiments, many scientific experiments are going. One of the aim is to unearth what is this matter and what are the matters which we are not able to see, feel. Okay, so these are the areas where science is spending more time today. What is the nature of expansion? And what is the speed of expansion, and what could be the forces under play? Okay, and what is the kind of maybe approximate mass of the universe? Are there other players in the universe which we haven't seen till now? Okay, so these are the kind of areas where science is spending more time today. Okay, enough for the day.
Yeah, Satish, can you explain this? वो जो शुरू में बताया था curve line or straight line.
Okay, the relativity.
हाँ, थोड़ा सा I'll go.
Yeah. So yeah. So the point is, you understood the reason what was led to this, that we were not able to explain the gravity instantaneously how it is acting. So that was the reason what was led to this. So the model of universe explained in the theory of general relativity is that. So we mentioned about the concept of space-time, which means you are not able to see that. You are not able to see what we call as space-time. We are only seeing space. We can see time also, but what happens is how something is in space-time and how something is in normal space are two different things. So for example, if we draw, let us assume we draw something like assume this is space, okay, and assume this is time. In two graphs, if you are just plotting, okay, so assume this is space and this is time. So if you think about somebody is throwing a stone from earth, assume this is earth, to moon. Okay, assume we are throwing a stone from earth to moon. Okay, so what would be its path? So its path, as all of us know, would be like this in space. Simple and straightforward, right? But when you think about time axis also, or when you think about time also, this stone, when you throw from here, it reaches the moon. Now, I'm not telling stone you can throw from and reach moon. I'm telling a fictitious case to explain something. It reaches after some time, right? So stone is thrown at this time. Let us assume it is reaching at this point, at this time. This is time. Time is increasing, right? After some time, it is reaching. So when you draw this in the space time, what will happen is this moon would be here, and this curve will be like this. The stone which has gone from here to here in space time, if you draw, it will be like this, because this you are talking about this time. So this is the concept of this diagram. For example, if you're taking it as light, for example, we will tell light from this point. Let us assume this is sun. If you think this is sun, and if you think, say, this is earth. Oops, wrong color. This is why my color sense is bad. Okay, so this is okay color. Okay, this assume this is earth. So normally, if the sunlight, when it comes, you will tell this takes 8 minutes, means you will tell this is how sunlight comes. But in the light cone, you have to mark the point where 8 minutes is. So if you are taking it in light cone, you have to take the point where this 8 minutes is coming. Let us assume 8 minutes is coming here. Then when 8 minutes is coming there, earth is not here. Earth is here then. So the light cones travel, if you map it in the light cone, it is like this. So the depiction will change depending on where you are. So if you throw a stone like this from here, you will see the stone going up and coming as curved. But then that may not be that curve. If you throw a stone like this, may go up like this and come curved like this. Okay, but then in the time, if you draw it in the space time, that shape will change. It won't be curved like this. It may go as a straight line. Understand? So the what happens in 3-dimensional and what happens in 4-dimensional could change. Depiction could change. Now space time is a 4-dimensional business. Okay, so in 4-dimensional, Einstein added one concept. He just added one concept. He added the concept that the impact or effect of what we call as mass is to create a disturbance in space-time. To create a disturbance in space-time. Just like if you have an earth and if you put a huge ball on earth, it will create a small hole like that. In space-time, in the 4-dimensional fabric, if you have heavy masses, it will make it warped, or it will make it curved. So what will happen is, if you add these two effects, the previous thing which we understood, that what we see in 3-dimensional, the movement of something what we see as curved need not be curved in 4-dimensional. If you add that to this is the giving the reason of why something should move at all. So if you are here from there, because of this curvature is what you are moving, because you are moving in a straight line, but then this is a curvature. So for you will feel like something is falling on earth, but for that it is just following its line. It was coming in straight line. So you are going in a straight line based on the curvature. It is so people also tell another example. I don't know whether that can make you give another idea. See, these examples have its own problems. Okay, so for example, like if you take like an earth like this, if you in longitude, let us assume one thing is going in a straight line like this in longitude, another stuff is also going in another straight line like this. So both are going in straight line. Okay, straight line in space, but after some point actually both will come and meet. That is because this is curved. So in three-dimensional, you can visualize this. So in three-dimensional, because this is curved, it happens like this, but each person is going in straight line. Actually, there is a phenomenon which is similar to this. That is, you know, the Arun Dev, do you remember that there is one after centrifugal and after Euler force, there is a third fictitious force. Oops, I missed its name. Coriolis. Coriolis, I think. Coriolis force. So, okay, so that is actually when you have tornado or wind and all coming from, say, from center of the earth, probably going through globe, this effect happens actually. It will go straight. Tornado and these things are coming straight. So it is coming in these things, but when it, because of this change in shape of the earth, its position will slightly drift when it reaches a different point. So you actually apply that Coriolis force, which is another area called fictitious force. I don't know, let's not get into that. But my point is that the change in shape of a frame or a fabric can impact changes in motion. So if something which goes straight from here, which is actually normally you will consider as parallel, which would have been parallel if the shape of the globe was not like this, because the shape it converges and it is curved, it will go and reach at one point. And now you have to replicate this into 4-dimensional, 3-dimensional. I can't visualize 4-dimensional. It is very difficult. You all are artists, you visualize.
So my earlier question was why it should follow that curved space time. Why it should follow that path? Why it begins to move?
You are asking why it is moving in the first place.
Yeah.
Why is it starting to move in the first place?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So see, that is bit tricky. That is still bit tricky. Okay, so that is bit tricky. That is why I don't know. You might know that as per the definition, we have 4 forces, and we have identified the particles which cause all other 3 forces except gravity.
Mm-hmm.
So why it is happening is still tricky.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, Einstein told that it is happening because of a force. Sorry, Newton told it because of a force. But then if that is applied, the relativity theory will go for a toss. So Einstein came up with another explanation that it is happening because of the curvature. But then, you know, I don't want to confuse others. If you really look at it, Arun, actually you are explaining a gravity with gravity. See, why would something fall on a curve? Why is something falling on a curve? Because of gravity, right?
Yeah.
So actually, this is explaining gravity with gravity.
Mm.
So there are more things there in display, but there are explanations also. Okay, people like Feynman and all have given explanations. Many people have given some explanation, but long and short of it, quantum mechanics is not able to explain gravity till now, which I think hope you also know. So we haven't found out which is the particle which causes gravitational effect. So that point is still not answered. That's why graviton is only on drawings, right?
Mm.
There is no particle found out still. Yeah. So now, if you ask me personally, I'm not a big fan of Big Bang theory also. But when I'm explaining, I'm just explaining this is how it has been explained by others. So personally, I'm not a great fan of Big Bang theory. I feel probably more concrete stuffs will come in future. But these are more to tell the history, right? So my job is to explain you the history of what happened and who explained what and how it is being explained. Rest is for you to deduce things out of it. Personally, I have problems with many such things.
There was a talk by this scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson where he was saying that if you are the light particle entering in your eyes right now, you are always traveling in the speed of light, so you are in no time. You started. You still exist in the same time when you were made during the.
Okay.
So for the light particle, there is no time. So the whole 500 billion years of history of universe doesn't exist for time. So it's just our construct. It could, it's beyond our measure.
Yeah. I think probably what we can do is we can put some videos of Tyson or Fermilab or people like that who explain this much more in simple way. See, I am only giving you a footstep to the big world of science and these things. I think these things call for much more simpler explanations. Probably Feynman's lectures, if it is having clarity, you can look at it. Or Tyson, of course, explains in a very nice way. Fermilab comes up with good videos, which explains. I think a lot of developments will happen in this further. That's what I think, and are happening. Okay.